If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
We are back. I'm Chris Evan, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, and tonight I'm joined by Randy Nance and Jeff MD. They're backstage for a minute, and we will be discussing the next episode in our long war series, post 9/11 2.0, which is the Authoritarian Century. It's a interesting topic, and it already seems to be unfolding in blue states. It's essentially the rise of illiberal powers, authoritarian states positioning themselves as, you know, the safe alternative. We need to lock everything down. You're going to love it, but we're going to take away all your civil liberties, sort of thing. So I got a quick update on our Element server. So we had some DDoS attacks while I was in Vegas, distributed denial of service. Our server has not been penetrated, period. But when somebody's unable to break into a server, they'll hit you with these, you know, call it a lowbrow, unsophisticated attack where they try to consume all your server's resources. And if they can do that, then they essentially make it unavailable to your regular users. So that happened while I was in Vegas. It happened again over the weekend. This time I was able to monitor stuff in real time. We discovered that there was a process that was spawning and going out of control. I reached out to the Element developers. We worked on it over the course of the past 24 hours. And just like clockwork at 15:48 Eastern this afternoon, 6,000 bots attacked us simultaneously. Same attack vectors previously. The last few times it was 4,000 bots. I monitored it in real time, and I watched the changes that we made to the software code thwart everything that they threw at us. And inside of 60 seconds, it was over. The server there was no hiccup, nothing. So I fully expect that they'll come back at us again with the next type of attack. But we're locked down pretty hard, and I kind of enjoy these fights and winning them, to be quite honest with you. So that's the update on the server. Everything's rock solid. Server hasn't been penetrated, and we are being as proactive as we possibly can to make sure that you guys have a community that when the power swings back to the left, which it'll inevitably do, people like us are going to be deplatformed just like we were deplatformed during Charlie 19. The difference this time around, for us at least, is we've been proactive and we've got our own server to run everything on, and that's that. That's the update for that. So I have another update for y'all. You may remember me mentioning the copper company that was trading as a penny stock, 3 cents a stock, you know, a few months ago. Well, it went over $1 not too long after we started mentioning it to y'all. And we've got some guardians who've written me some very nice emails thanking me for putting them onto it, because they put money into it and they got a really, really good ROI. And, you know, if you're a regular follower, you know, I don't position myself as a financial investment guy. It's not in my wheelhouse, but I do like to win. And I'm pretty stubborn when it comes to winning. So I just want to make this clear again. I am not an investment guru. I am not giving you financial investment guidance ever. However, I do have some sources in the industry that say, hey, you should be watching this, that, and the other thing. Here's the next thing that's coming. So here's an interesting development, and I didn't know anything about this. I'm sure Jeff MD did. I'm not sure if Randy did. I got to ask him when we talk. But earlier this year, on January the 5th, the Department of Energy committed $2.7 billion to restart domestic uranium enrichment. And it's not like, oh, we just decided to spend $2.7 billion. They mandated it because we need uranium, and we need American uranium now. The numbers blew me away. Like, here's the problem. We use over 50 million pounds of uranium a year, and we produce less than 1 million domestically. So we have a 98% foreign dependency on a critical national security resource. And Russia controls the major global enrichment, and Greenland used to be in this game, but they shut down their mining. So here's the play essentially from my source. There's a company called Atomic Minerals, and they trade as ATOM in Canada and ATMMF here in the US. And I'll put some information up later during the live broadcast so you can get all their stock tickers and stuff. But these guys are positioned just like the copper guys were. They've got a team that has hit big home runs just like the copper team did previously. And you can look this up. Members of their leadership team were behind the Rough Rider discovery. It was a $654 million payday for these guys. I would call that a pretty significant liquidity event. So that gave these guys a bunch of assets, and they have the right assets. They have 4 100% owned uranium projects in the Colorado Plateau. And this is our uranium hub, right? This is where 99% of the uranium is in America. And it's Colorado and South Lisbon Valley, which is in Utah. And they already know, they own the properties, they have the uranium. The government said, hey, we're going to spend all this money. We want to be 100% dependent on American sources, not foreign sources. So on January 14th, so 9 days after the 2.7 billion got earmarked for us to develop our own uranium, the White House invoked what's called Section 232, and they formally tied the energy security to national security. And when that happens, I mean, the sky's the limit. So uranium prices are starting to rise right now. They haven't gone crazy yet, but the drill programs have started back up. They're active again. The results are coming. So here's the deal. There's a government mandate with a company that has experienced leadership, sound familiar to the copper company, and strategic U.S. assets. So Atomic Minerals, these guys here, and I'll put all of this information, like I said, in a stock ticker so y'all can kind of absorb it. This is a similar type of play. I just want to make it clear. I'm not an investment guru. I've never been an investment guy, but when a source keeps coming to me and saying, hey, you really should share this with your audience because, you know, they're experts, I'm not. And these guys have a track record of essentially knocking it out of the park. So with that being said, actually, by the way, there's a link down in the video description. And again, I'll put some stuff across scrolling banner here shortly. So I'm going to bring Jeff and Randy into the mix here. Let's get Jeff up here on stage. Gentlemen, how are you tonight?
Good.
Doing good.
All right. So apologies for the minor delay there. Let's get into the conflicted question of the night. For those of you not familiar with it, conflictofthegame.com. These are 14 card decks set in post-apocalyptic scenarios. Many, not all of the questions have some element of morality, hence the name conflicted. After the disaster completely changed the way modern society functioned in a blink of an eye, Morgan found himself needing to get home on foot. He had to get there quickly as people would begin to get desperate with each day that went by and things did not get back to normal. Food and water would eventually run out, not to be replenished again the way people were used to. At each night, he had to make camp to rest and get some sleep. If you had to make it home on foot from far away and none of the modern conveniences were available, where would you choose to spend the night and why? Interesting question, especially if it's what would you call it, Jeff, an austere environment? Is that the right wording?
That's one way to put it. Yeah.
All right. So we want to see your answers in the live chat comment section down below. We will give you our answers at the end. So next one up, one of my all-time favorite sheriffs, Grady Judd. He kills me. Like he's so genuine and funny, but watch the guy in the background while Grady Judd is talking here. This is textbook Grady Judd. Funny as all get out.
Comes in and she's already uglier than a mud fence. right? And then as you start to engage, you find out, hey, this dudette is a dude, and look what he really looks like. Yeah, he looks like he should have been in a Scarface movie someplace. I don't know. This is what's happening. People think they're getting this, and many times they're getting a really bad guy. So this is the before and after, you know. When you find them in the bar at night, you know, you try to drink them pretty, and you wake up the next morning and you see this. Yeah, that's what we call Rolex ugly. Rolex ugly is you wake up the next morning and they're laying on your arm and your Rolex is there and you just chew your arm off and leave the Rolex. You just got to get out of there. You don't care about the Rolex. She comes in and she's already up.
He is a character.
Just classic Grady Judd. I mean, every sheriff should behave like Grady Judd does. Anyway, I don't have a lot in the sit rep tonight on purpose, but check this one out. Leftist man wants MAGA to fear him. Question for the first poll is, are you intimidated? So if this video, this guy intimidates you, put a 2 in the live chat. If he doesn't intimidate you, then feel free to put a 1 in the live chat.
What if dressed like a chick?
Yeah, well, I mean, this
That would scare me.
Oh, absolutely.
this
You
he's,
want to run to that guy in the dark alley? You never know what.
I'm telling you, he's a tough guy. Check it out.
That's right.
Hey, MAGA, Peter Thiel, Trump, JD Vance, Elon Musk. Fear us.
Check this out before I play the rest. He's got the same arms that look like pipe cleaners that David Hogg has.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking, was he farting in the background, or what is that noise? I don't think.
I'm not sure.
1%.
Oh.
We are the 99.
Did you see this?
We are the.
No. Let me get. There you go. All I want for Christmas. Are
Oh,
my
yeah, that's
teeth.
right. My front teeth.
Oh
Hey,
God.
buddy.
He looks like one of the guys from Deliverance.
That's right.
Well, that's funny you should say that, because I was just thinking to myself, he should probably lay off the pipe.
Well, he definitely doesn't have a pretty mouth.
No.
Boy, howdy, this could go south real.
I don't want to get his
My
kicked
fault. I
off.
brought it up.
Think about it. Who has the power? So anyway, if you're intimidated by this guy, put a 2 in the live chat. If you are not intimidated by him, put a 1 in the live chat. And I'm trying to see if we can't see through both lenses. There you go. All right. And there's the 1,000 milligram stare. Not surprised at all. Jeff, Randy, were you intimidated by this guy?
I'm shaking in my boots.
Yeah, I'm looking at those shoulders. Man, that's not even a 38, right? He's probably got a 36 jacket or his chest and shoulders. This guy's in a 36.
I think
I'm shaking in my boots as well.
David Hogg needs to look at this and say, dude, this is you in 20 years.
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth?
You're used to it.
Golly, unbelievable. All right, so check this one out. This is what's going on in Europe still. We cannot believe what we are seeing. Thousands and thousands of them all marching into Spain from Africa. And the Spanish government is now giving them the right to stay. This is insanity. This will be the end if we do not stop at 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So this is what you call weaponized migration.
Yep.
Jeff, is there no hope of this shit being stopped in Europe, or are they just past the Rubicon now?
No, I mean this is the equivalent of an entire country pouring gasoline over their head and then lighting a match, and then
And wonder why they're on fire. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say then blame it on somebody else.
It
Right?
reminds me of those Buddhist monks during Vietnam War who would set themselves on fire.
Right?
And it's basically the same thing. It's like, you guys are just stupid. And then they're shocked that, ow, this hurts. Well, yeah, kind of knew that going in.
What a horrible way to go, right?
Yeah.
But this weaponized migration, Europe's done. Europe's lost. And if and when, the power swings back to the left and the Democrats steal another election, this will be our southern border all over again. So you can bank on that. All right, check this out. It's official. A citizen journalist has exposed countless anti-ICE protesters boarding buses after they clocked out of the day's protest. Look, watch this. See? All these people are not from Massachusetts. It's communist dollars. Audit the funds. 2 minutes, 22 seconds. I'm not going to play the whole thing because you will get the gist of it far faster than that.
This is the bus coming to pick everybody up that they dropped off here to make it look like there's tons of people here. When in actuality, they're busing them in from other cities.
So if anybody else is wondering why this isn't the short bus, put a 1 in the live chat, because I'm wondering why this isn't the short bus, to be honest with you.
See? Look, watch this. See? All these people are not from Massachusetts.
You get their names and then audit them, see if they declared that income.
That's right.
Right?
Stick the IRS after them. And did their employers issue them a W-2? You got to do that too.
So, hold. You in the hood? She's one of the people from the Kings rally.
Which one?
The one with the yellow hat, the lady.
Oh, yeah?
Right?
Oh, yeah.
No Kings on the rally.
These are all the paid people. These are all the paid people here that get paid to work here. See them all? These are all the paid people.
And how many of them are collecting welfare and food stamps and all that and not declaring that income?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you can tell the girl that's the lady that's talking, she's definitely from there. She's
a local.
But, it just is the same thing we've been saying. If the media, if the FBI, if people that were supposed to be doing their job, we'd already know about all this. This would have been uncovered. But the fact that they're complicit in it is why it's still going. I'm not going to say that they're just turning a blind eye anymore. They're helping it along, obviously.
Yeah.
Because there would be something done, and there isn't. Just like in Minnesota, right? The FBI was doing their job. They would have uncovered the fraud. They would have uncovered the Signal app, but they didn't.
No. Did you guys catch the number, by the way, that they're saying there's 80,000 people in the Minneapolis area that are part of this, whatever you want to call them, team SSRI, for lack of a better term? It's a big number. It's a lot of people.
80,000 is a big number.
Yeah. Jeff, you want to add anything else to this? This is astroturfing on a grand scale.
Well, yeah, it is. And they've been doing this forever. It's coming out now and they're getting paid and they're being more blatant about it. But yeah, and there's going to be more fraud coming out. I don't know if you saw the thing about the nursing homes or whatever, care homes in Los Angeles. That one county accounts for something like 18% of the nation's convalescent homes. And
oh boy,
they're in empty warehouses, vacant lots.
It's another Laring Center.
Yes. They have something like 50 times more in Los Angeles County than the entire state of Texas.
Well, I wonder, like I said, I think by the time we go uncover, if we went to all 50 states, we just might erase that debt.
Yeah.
Well, did you catch Elon Musk saying, we are not whatever it is, 36, 37 trillion in debt, and that it's all these, scams that have been going on. But we've got one more for tonight's sit rep, then we'll get into the main topic. And this makes me smile very, very much.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know if y'all caught this out there in the audience, but Trump basically said, well, all of these things that we participate in the United Nations, we're done. We're not doing this, and this. And we're not going to pay dues on this, and this. Here's the result. It is absolutely glorious. And
this was less than a week, right? After he announced it. This is less than a week.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, this was today.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, Bob, this announcement came less than a week after him telling them that.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
So that tells you how much we're propping them up.
Well, and there's something here you got to realize that our annual dues for them, there's complaining we didn't pay last year's. We did. It's over $800 million in just the dues. It's all the other stuff that we've been paying for that they're whining about. And it's like, we're under no obligation to pay that stuff.
Yeah. We've been essentially paying for a crooked organization to screw us.
Yeah.
Is what it boils down to.
Well, and if you look at international peacekeeping, which is another big scam, I think we pay something like 75, 80% of all of those,
Unreal.
whether we're involved or not.
Yeah.
Absolutely unreal. Well, I mean, here the pendulum is swinging the right direction for a change. In a bombshell announcement, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has issued a dire warning. The United Nations is on the brink of total collapse if the United States, which contributes approximately $2.2 billion to the regular budget alone, does not give in to the UN. Well, I think I speak for all of us and say screw the UN. 1 minute, 12 seconds.
The Secretary General has, as you know, repeatedly.
I've got to do a audience poll on this. If this thing is a man, put a 1 in the live chat. If it's a eunuch or a woman, put a 2 in the live chat. And if it's a Saturday Night Live Pat, put a 3 in the live chat.
None of the above.
1, it's a dude. 2, it's a female. 3, it's Pat. Listen to the voice on this thing. Way too much soy in this thing's diet.
Made clear the problem both of non-payment of Jews by member states and the related problem of the UN being forced to repay member states for budget expenses that it does not budget money that it does not spend, so those two factors have put us on an unsustainable trajectory. Although more than 150 member states paid their dues last year, we ended 2025 with a record $1.56 billion in outstanding dues, which is more than double that of the previous year. So unless either the payments come in or we're not compelled to spend, to return the monies that we are not able to spend because we didn't receive the budget, unless one of those two things happen, we face a real danger of running out of money.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. Go ahead, Jeff.
It's funny, as I read about this thing today, and it's this stupid accounting thing that he's talking about. I don't know who in the heck put it in there, who agreed to it, but it says, okay, if they budget, $1 billion, and they don't spend the $1 billion, they have to return the money to the member states. But the issue here is they're not spending the $1 billion because they don't have it in the first place because these people aren't paying their dues. But if they have to refund it, it gets refunded to the people who didn't pay their dues. So they actually get a refund of money they didn't spend, they didn't pay. So, it behooves them not to pay because they're like, well, you have to pay us back. It's a win-win for us. We don't pay you, but you pay us. It's the dumbest thing in the world. The UN is just retarded.
That is just priceless. Randy, do you want to add to that?
Well, I mean, I think he said it well, that's clearly, but he did say they weren't going to pay it back right now this time because they didn't get it all. Everybody's known this thing has been a problem since I've been alive.
They are legally obligated to return any monies not spent, but the reason they're not spending it is because it hasn't come in the first place.
But didn't he say they were going to pay it back because of that too? Didn't he say that?
No, that's what's so stupid about the rule. They have to pay it back, period. Why they didn't spend it isn't covered.
It's absolutely brilliant.
But all this UN and international stuff is a bunch of crap. I even go back to the Geneva Convention. When I found out that if you are captured, right, on the battlefield and you become a prisoner of war, it's illegal for you to kill your captors to escape. Now, I don't know who makes that kind of rule, but to me, that goes against basic survival and common sense you know.
Well, and if you try to escape, they'll kill you.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, you know, the guy that developed SEER, his name was Colonel Nick Rowe. He was captured in Vietnam. And I think for 5 or 6 years, he was in captivity. And for the first 3, they thought, you know, what he told them that he was he was an artillery officer. And back in Vietnam, they went around and recruited those young lieutenants out of the artillery school to come be team leaders on ODAs.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that they had a perfectly logical reason to do that on fire support and some other reasons. But regardless, he was one of those guys. He gets captured, and for 3 years, they don't know who he is. But it's a lesson to everybody. You know, unfortunately for him, the news at some point here in the United States interviewed his family. One of his nephews or somebody, because they were, or cousins, who were like, you know, I think it was either Uncle Nick or Cousin Nick. You know, he's a Green Beret. He got captured over there. So then he went through a lot of torture because of that. But he survived the whole thing. And in the end, they took him out, one guy, because, you know, he probably weighed 80 pounds at this point. He'd been in captivity for 5 or 6 years. A lot of the guys he was there with had already died of dysentery and torture and some other things. So they finally decide he has no value left. So they send one guy that takes him outside the camp, gives him a shovel, and has him dig his own grave. And while he's digging that, I guess the guy wasn't paying attention, got close enough. Old Nick hits him with the shovel, and he hightails it out of there. He gets rescued, and of course comes back and develops the core SEER. However, the Vietnamese wanted him back because they said he killed the guard that was guarding him when he was digging his own grave. And that was against Geneva Convention, where, as we well know, none of the Viet Cong ever followed any of the Geneva Convention rules. And none of our enemies ever do. We're the only idiots that follow those rules, because some of them are pretty stupid. But the point is, he ended up getting assassinated later. And they believe it all went back to that, because the communists thought we should have turned him over so they could execute him because he killed his captor to escape.
That's just stupid.
It isn't. That's insanity. So before we jump into the main topic, I've got one more audience poll here, and we'll use a little bit of symbolism in this one. So if you think that Pat here, because the vast majority said Pat, I see 3s all over the place. If Pat here is pitching, put a 1 in the live chat. On the other hand, if Pat is catching,
he's definitely catching.
Yeah.
Put 0 in the live chat. 1 for pitching, 0 for catching. Let's see what y'all think of Pat there. Let me get Jeff up on this stage as well. All right. So I got to mention, I don't know what Greg sent y'all. I don't know if you've seen this other jerky. So he's killing me, man. Like, he's absolutely killing me. This stuff here.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. Original beef jerky, right? So
Man.
he sent me 2 of these. Yeah, I wiped out the entire bag, the first bag, in like 5 minutes flat. And I won't lie, my dog helped me because it went crazy when I opened it.
Well, it's the same. I can't open a package without them coming around.
Yeah.
But the thing is that with the Wagyu beef, with having such a high fat content, this is freaking off the chain. Like, I mean, off the chain. So I'll put a link in the live chat in a minute. WasatchWagyu.com, discount code SD20. And by the way, beef prices, of course, continue to skyrocket. And if you want to protect yourself from that, go to carnival.com, sign up for a subscription. We don't have a discount code for it because the subscriptions are cut to the bone, but it'll keep your price for 12 months straight. So pretty good deal. You're not going to get 12 months, of beef prices frozen at, say, Kroger's or Publix or wherever you do your shopping at. So with that being said, we are ready to go into the main topic. So when Clete and I wrote this Long War series, 144 episodes, we predicated everything on being a post 9/11 2.0 scenario. So if you know that, you have the context to watch any of these episodes in whatever order that you want or not. You can watch one, you can watch them all, you can watch something in between. As long as you understand what post 9/11 2.0 means, then it'll make sense to you. So I'll give you the Cliff Notes version on 9/11 2.0, which is slightly updated, by the way. So the intel from Khalid and his boots on the ground, as well as Jane Doe's intelligence, which those two, Jane Doe and Khalid, have been working together for an extended period of time, is now that the jihadis are going to attack 15 to 20 tier 2 cities simultaneously in America. So tier 2 city, 100 to 500,000 population, with the caveat that they're specifically looking at cities that have one level 1 trauma center. And all of this goes down like Mumbai in 2008, but on a much larger scale. And the attack window is now open, by the way. The attack window is now to Ramadan, which starts February 17th. If we don't see the big attacks by then, you may see lone wolf attacks during Ramadan. Most likely not. But come March 18th, when Ramadan ends, it's game on again. So the attack window has this kind of chunk in the middle from February 17th to March 18th, where it's unlikely to see 9/11 2.0 during that window. So now imagine this. You've got 15 to 20 tier 2 cities. You have 10 to 15 sleeper cells in each city. You have 4 to 12 jihadis in each sleeper cell in each city. You're now looking at somewhere around, call it 3,000, 3,500 highly trained jihadis, starting out by attacking soft targets and then waiting for the first responders to show up so they can set off their secondary and tertiary attacks, usually VBIEDs, vehicle-borne IEDs, to kill as many of them as possible. They'll be dressed up. Some of them will be dressed up as first responders. Some of them will be driving first responder vehicles. So if you are unfortunate enough to be on the X when an attack happens, but fortunate enough to survive it, get as far away as fast as you possibly can, because what you perceive to be first responders, there's a high probability it's the jihadis posing as first responders. Not a new tactic. They've been doing this for years. They did it on 10/7 in Israel, and they will continue to do that. So there are probably at least 2 command and control centers like there were in Mumbai. So these are groups. Picture something like Johnson Space Control, where you have teams monitoring live news coverage, social media coverage, and body cams that are on the jihadis, and instructing them to pivot as the attacks unfold through the 10 to 15 cities. So essentially saying, well, hold on a minute. Don't go to target A, go to target B, because whatever is happening, sort of thing. So essentially to maximize the damage, right? And in each of these cities, they will converge upon the tier 1 or level 1, I should say, trauma center, and siege it in the afternoon, most likely. And at that point in time, it's going to take a serious effort and time to get them unsieged. You're looking at probably 3,000 to 5,000 hostages in each of those situations. So this does a whole bunch of things, right? Anybody who's injured that needs level 1 care and can't get it is probably going to die, because the next closest, level 1 trauma center is probably a couple hours away. Like if you think Buffalo to Rochester, New York, as an example. So that will mean that we'll have to triage people who are injured or grievously injured, because we won't have this level 1 trauma center to send them to in each of these tier 2 cities. We've got there might be 3 groups that can unsiege the buildings without massive casualties. Delta team, FBI HRT team, there's 140 of them spread across 4 teams. Potentially LAPD SWAT team, but LA is not on the list of cities to be attacked, but they could certainly help with San Diego, which is not too far south of them, which is on the list. And at the end of the day, we'll also have to triage these, level 1 trauma centers to determine which ones are we going to unsiege the soonest. While this is going on, there's an airplane component to it. It's called Bojinka. It's a made-up word, Bojinka. Look it up. It's a type of attack that Osama bin Laden came up with in the mid-1990s. I won't get deep into it because I want to get into the main topic here. That's essentially what 9/11 2.0 looks like. So segment 1 I titled Overwhelming Federal Response Capacity. So overwhelming the Fed's ability to respond, essentially. So you've got these massive CCTAs, complex coordinated terrorist attacks across 15 to 20 cities. that immediately is going to stretch emergency services thin across the board, and very quickly as well. Then as you've got the first responders, scrambling to get to multiple sites with limited gear and manpower. When I think of 9/11 2.0 and this phase, like right at the beginning, I think of that shootout in California years ago, where you've got a couple bad guys with full auto machine guns, body armor, and they marched around, and the city PD had things like revolvers and 9mm pistols, and it was bad, if you all recall. Anyway, federal agencies like FEMA and DHS, they're not going to be mobilized right away at all. So you're looking at local resources, most likely for the first 24 hours. And there's going to be all types of chaos, communication wise, logistics is going to be a mess, because I'm not sure of all the states, but I have to assume they're relatively the same. And I'll ask Jeff this question as we bring him back up again. But here in Florida, municipalities get marching orders from the county during an emergency like a hurricane. The county gets their marching orders from the state gets their marching orders from the feds. So I can see a lot of chaos and communications unfolding, and logistics and SOPs breaking down pretty darn fast and staying broken down for a period of time. Could be days, could even be weeks. So this overload, will most likely force state and local mutual aid. So you're going to have other cities in the surrounding area, but keep in mind, tier 2 cities typically don't have any large centers around them that have large numbers of people to come when the call goes out for mutual aid. So they'll probably have to come from further away, potentially even out of state. And that just takes even longer to mobilize everybody, especially when you look at the sheer scale of this: 15 to 20 cities, 10 to 15 sleeper cells in each city, 4 to 12 jihadis per sleeper cells, plus an airplane component to it as well. We've never faced anything. Nobody's ever faced anything like this before. It's Mumbai 2008 multiplied by an order of magnitude. So the worst part of it is probably the gaps in preparedness are going to stand out like a freaking sore thumb. So I'm going to get the boys back up here. Jeff, I got to ask you, as far as, mutual aid is concerned in particular, what happens when these guys put the call out for mutual aid and there just isn't any?
Yeah, that's a possibility, because, when it becomes apparent that it's happening all over the place, a city may say, okay, we don't want to send all of our first responders to the town next door, and then we get hit. They've got to look at, what do they have? What kind of flex capability do they have? Do they have excess, capacity for hospital beds, for ambulances, for police? They've got to make that decision, because can you imagine what would happen to a mayor if he sent all of his first responders, to a town 100 miles away, and then they got hit and they have no way to respond? Because their people will go, dude, that's what we paid for. That's what our tax dollars went for. There's going to be a lot of the mutual support, and there should be, but you're going to have those people who are going to hesitate because they're not going to understand what's going on.
Yeah, good point, Jeff. I got another question for you. Is there anything that could be, put in place really quickly right now to beef up federal response teams, like have them somewhat semi-prepared if somebody was going to actually listen to the intelligence for a change? I mean, let's start with that.
It would probably have to be the military. You would need the military has more capabilities than anyone else. Even with the National Guard, you've got a lot of people that can be brought to bear, but you need to be prepared. You need to have an action plan, and you need to be having people. You're not putting them on alert necessarily, but you're saying, be ready. There's, we've got intel that something's going to happen. We don't know where, but if it does, you're going to need to be called up. So basically stand ready.
Yeah. Good point. So Randy, I'm mulling this over my head and thinking of you being a Green Beret and how you would react. I guess let's just go straight to the military. What role should the military play when civilian agencies get swamped? And, does that require the Insurrection Act and martial law, in your opinion, like to overcome posse comitatus, for example? You're on mute, Randy.
I think that first, again, like what Jeff just said, we're talking about the National Guard, because so far as I know, there's no way for the president or any other entity to like take active duty units and like, well, we'll send it to another city, and do that. So I don't know the complete answer to that question because I've never been in the National Guard, and the state does things completely different than the federal government. And just a quick example of that is like when I got injured, right? I came on back. Now I was injured bad enough, I didn't have a choice. But let's say I was just injured a little bit, right? And my medic took care of it. It was going to be a lingering thing, and I might need to get it more fixed once I get home, but we're going to make it through. We're going to push through the deployment, right? So the thing is, or like me being on federal active duty, once I came back, I would go to if I didn't go to Walter Reed or Book Army Medical Center, which obviously would be a more serious injury, but I waited till I went back. I still have a hospital on my installation. I have a sick call, a clinic, right, that I go to. The National Guard is completely different. So the National Guard guys, if they come back and they're injured, they have to go to Walter Reed or some facility and stay there till it's all the way fixed before they can ever go home, which I think is a big problem because a lot of guys, by the time it's been a year and a half, or however long you've been there, and they're hurting a little bit, they're like, I'm going home. So if they pass up that medical care, they don't ever get it again. So I don't, it's completely different than federal. And Jeff may know more to it. I don't know. But what I know is it would have to be National Guard because that's what's in the state. The governor can then call them up. The president can also do that. Like the governor would ask the president to do it. They'll federalize them, and then the National Guard would come in. And that's just like any other deployment. That's like, the people that are, I don't know how the National Guard, but I assume they have a red cycle, right? Which is any units on red cycle. That means anything happens, you're next. Something happens in the AO, y'all cover, you're next. So I would imagine the National Guard is the same way. And as those orders start coming down, they just call those people out and those people show up. And then they're going to go to their National Guard unit, get all their stuff, and then head to wherever said problem is. I don't know any more specific details on how that would happen. Now, it doesn't have to declare martial law because we've done it before and didn't. Now, or the Insurrection Act. However, we're in different territory now than in any time in my lifetime. Certainly like in Minnesota, you look at there, everybody's like, man, he needs to enact the Insurrection Act. He needs to send some troops in there. Again, I think those would still be National Guard, even if they're federalized, but something needs to give. And so that's how I think we should do it. But I guess we're going to find out if that's what happens or not.
Yeah, good in-depth answer, Randy. Appreciate that. So back to you, Jeff, before we move on to the next segment. What are your thoughts of bringing in private resources? So, for example, I want to say 6 months or so ago, Eric Prince, who started Blackwater, went to Trump and said, give me $30 billion and I will get rid of all of the bad actors that came across the border, and I will have, quick reaction teams to deal with any terrorist attacks, so on and so forth. I don't think, obviously, that it went anywhere, but even on a smaller scale than that, is there the opportunity to engage some private resources, Jeff, or is that just not something you foresee?
I think it's going to be limited just because they're not law enforcement. They have no official government mandate. So that if, someone's, shows up on my property and says, yeah, we're here to confiscate all your food, I'm like, who in the hell are you? Well, the state sent us here. Oh, so do you work for the state? No, get the hell off my land. I wouldn't listen to them.
Good point.
So, Yeah, because they're like, I'm sorry, you're just, if they hired some mall cop to come over here and tell me what to do, I'm not going to listen to him. He has no authority. I don't care who hired him.
Yeah, and no, that's legit. That makes sense. Randy, coming back to you, just I haven't really asked this question this way before, but what training programs do you see for first responders that are going to fall way short based on the fact that after you were a male dancer, before you were a Green Beret, you were a paramedic? So talk to me about first responder training.
Well, it's all geared on the patient, right? Whatever happened, you most of the time when you get a call, it's a person down. That I would say 75% of the time, that's probably all you're going to get. Now there'll be some other times you get some more information, but all first responder, when I was in, that was a long time ago, 30 plus years ago. So I don't know what the doctrine is today. I haven't kept up with it. I didn't become a medic in the Army. I told them no. And so, however, from what I know, all first responder training is on the actual event and the patients and triaging that if you need to, and then keeping said person alive until you can package them up, transport them to the emergency room, get them over onto that table, and now they're someone else's problem. There is no like defensive posture or any kind of awareness. I mean, there's slightly like, better than to not strap a heroin addict all the way down before the medic gives them Narcan, right? Because when you do that and they come up, you just rent their high, and believe me, they are pissed. They come out swinging, spitting, biting, anything they can do. So they're geared towards that direction, but more of the outside threats, I think it's really more of the, as we see today, they want the police will go in there first and secure the area. Then the ambulance will show up and the fire truck. Cause a lot of times there's a fire truck that also goes out with an ambulance. Certainly if it's an unknown, if it's a heart attack, if it's a wreck, there is definitely going to be an engine that's also deployed with that ambulance. And they're all about getting to that as quick as possible, assessing what that is quick as possible. Again, there's no real kind of training doctrine or even awareness that, something like this may happen. And, I think there's been medics killed back in the day because said bad guy showed back up while they're working on a patient and shot them all. But, I don't know if that's changed. Like, as I said, maybe somebody in the chat will know, but to my knowledge, there's not any kind of real self-preservation, besides not getting hit by a car and that kind of stuff. They're not anything ready for an attack like this. There's just nothing that they have done that would prepare them for this, because this isn't something they've ever trained for, or I think certainly until recent times, as we all believe, that wasn't even possible for happening in the United States. And of course, once upon a time, that would be true.
Appreciate that, Randy. So one of my best friends, his name's Lane Kelly. He was born and raised in Cleveland, Tennessee, so Bradley County. And he was a Bradley County paramedic for 10 years before he moved into the robotic industry. And I was talking to him a few weeks ago, and he said that somebody came up with this training for paramedics to contend with something similar to 9/11 1.0 shortly after 9/11 1.0 came out. But the crazy part is, Randy, that you'll relate to, is very few counties were doing it, period. And they did this thing for like 1 or 2 years, and then they gave up on it and they didn't follow up anymore. So I think you're spot on by saying that it's just not out there.
Well, and then you got to look at, I think Jeff mentioned this once before in another episode or something very similar to this. For municipalities, that first thing they're going to do is evaluate, okay, what's the possibility this happens in our county? And a lot of these, like you just said, are going to go, yeah, we're not New York City. It's not happening here. Then the other thing about it is training costs money.
Yeah.
And counties don't have a lot of money. They're not going to spend it on it. And one of the first things that leaves, even in the military, a lot of times, like when Clinton was in office, when Obama was in office, training went way down because you couldn't spend money on it. Bullets went way down because you couldn't spend money on it. It's no different than these counties. It's one of the reasons there's not more training of all kinds, because it costs money. And the first place when they're going to start saving money, and when they say we don't have enough, you can guaranteed training is one of the first things always cut.
Yeah, good point. Really good point, Randy. Very true. So let's bounce into segment number 2. I titled it Shattering Public Trust. So when terror strikes hit multiple cities at once, I think there's going to be a lot of people questioning why the government didn't stop it. Why they didn't make some effort to stop it. Because probably what we're going to hear is, well, they were on our radar. This was on our radar, but we didn't do anything about it, but it was on our radar sort of thing. And I think that with this type of scale is going to completely erode faith in everything from intelligence agencies to security, law enforcement. I think it's going to cause just major consternation for, John Q. public as far as faith in the system is concerned. Then the media coverage of overwhelmed hospitals, delayed rescues. Tell me that's not going to make people feel like they've been abandoned. Nobody's coming to help, which we have been saying for ever and a day. And I think that that's going to make the public really, really angry at leaders who are perceived to be unprepared or out of touch. I'm not big on Ron DeSantis being bum buddies with Paul Ryan and the WEF crowd. I don't think I'll ever forgive him for the shit that he tried to pull during the primary. But as a governor, he's done a great job. And we do have a lot of stuff in place in Florida that other states don't have on this particular topic. I think he'll get passing grades. I think people like Pritzker, Newsom, those sort of people will be eviscerated. Doesn't mean anything will change, but they'll be eviscerated for it. So over time, like as this stuff begins to unfold, I think that distrust will turn into widespread calls for drastic changes. And I think that's a situation of you should probably be careful what you wish for, because you may just get it. Because I think you're going to see a lot of people saying we need stricter surveillance. We need new laws, Patriot Act 2.0, for example. And I think what will happen out of that is, I sound like a broken record, but the first thing you do in life is decide what you want. The second thing you do is decide what you're willing to give up to get it in all cases. So the Karens, the hall monitors, the 1,000 milligram stare people will all say, well, we have to sacrifice all of our freedoms, just like they did during Charlie 19, because if it saves just one life, it's worth it. And it's not. That's called the process of natural selection. So, Jeff, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on how's the public going to potentially perceive the failure aspect of a very large scale event like 9/11 2.0?
Well, I think they're going to be pissed off. We spend billions and trillions of dollars, and one of the minimum that you expect from your government is to keep you safe, at least a modicum of safety, not 100%, can never be 100%. And I think there's just going to be a lot of rage, and a lot of it will probably be pointed in the wrong direction. They're just going to get mad at anybody. I can guarantee you, if Minneapolis gets hit, they're not going to blame the fact that they've imported the third world into their city. They're going to blame Trump, because if he hadn't been deporting these hardworking illegal aliens, they'd have had more time and resources to put on these terrorists. Well, guess what? Those terrorists came across with them. So, they're not going to know what to do. I think a lot of people are just going to rage, and we've gotten to the point now where people don't think, they just rage. You see it all the time on X, where they Trump did this and that, and it's like it's all in the Epstein files. And I always go, okay, Democrats had the Epstein files for 4 years. If you think there was anything even mildly damaging against Trump, they would not have used it during the last election. They would have let him win. No, that's how you know there's nothing there. It had been out by now.
100%. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on that front. So, Randy, just a hypothetical scenario for you here. Let's just say that the public, is very angry. I agree with Jeff. And they start to tell the authorities that, they want more intelligence. They want more threat information shared with the public. Do you think that the government says, well, we can't do that because it would cause mass panic? Or do you think they would give in? Or do you think it would be, vary by geography or state across the country? Because I can see them saying, oh, no, we can't share that. It would cause mass panic. Well,
they'll come up with some reason like that. They're not going to share that information. It doesn't matter how mad the public gets or what they do, because what the government does. We start rising up because we're a little mad. The next thing you know, there was a January 6th and they arrested everybody. And as we know, they will come after us. They won't be like this pussyfooting around that we've watched go on now. They will full-fledged come after us. And there's no doubt about that, because you got to realize it's not just because they think it'll scare the public. Sometimes, a lot of times, in fact, when you disclose that information, it lets the people like our enemies know how that was collected, or maybe who it was, or both. It divulges stuff that we don't want to do, and that's never going to happen. Even if they thought it was a good idea, they're not going to do it. I can promise you that. I also want to address something. Somebody made a comment a little earlier back. I don't know where it is. I'm not going to go find it. But they talked about, a certain woman that we used to get along with that has posted, has her own show and has done 4 episodes on this and didn't mention it once, and that it's been delayed. And we know that, and we're just not divulging that to our audience. Well, you're full of shit, first of all, because because that said woman got her information from Khalid, and Khalid is still telling us it's on, and there is no real delay like what you're talking about. When he comes and tells us a delay, we will put that information. Well, that'll be up to Chris and him. If they can put that information out, they will. But quit trying to speculate over there, because you clearly don't have a clue. Anyway, that's all I got.
Fair enough, Randy. Jeff, I want to go back to Desert Storm, early 90s. What did the Iraqi government tell their people after we wiped the floor with them inside of, the blink of an eye? And after that, did the public in Iraq lose complete confidence in the Iraqi government, or was the Iraqi government so heavy-handed they just squashed any dissension? You're on mute, Jeff. And I'm just trying to get a feel for a people who've, lost faith in the system, lost faith in their government.
There was some attempt at an uprising, especially in the south around Basra with the Shias. But our problem is we left Saddam in place. And while the Republican Guard took a beating, they lost a lot of equipment and all that. The people opposing Saddam had no equipment. They had no guns. And so he was able to maintain power because he controlled the purse strings. He decided what money went into what areas. He could also, and did, he would withhold water. Down around Basra, it's a very marsh area. It's where the Tigris Euphrates comes out, and those people's, their life and their economy was built around the marshes. And he dried them out. He turned the water off, and they had all these works in place where they had dikes and things, and he blocked them off, and their whole way of life basically crumbled. But he had control of his media. They didn't have, you didn't have X and all this other stuff back then. People don't realize that the internet was new. This was 1990. What? The first one was 91, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So none of that stuff existed. You didn't have cell phones. You didn't have anything. So he controlled, he controlled the media in his country. So he could tell them wherever he wanted. He told a lot of them, yeah, we actually beat the Americans, the West. That's why they fled. We drove them out of the country. Well, we left because we wanted to leave. There was nothing in there. We could have driven them to Baghdad. We just chose not to.
Well, that raises a question, for Randy or you. Either one can, answer it. But more than one GWAT vet has said to me that one of the problems in Afghanistan was that there were no newspapers, TV stations. there was no means of pushing information out to the majority of people because they didn't have the infrastructure. So the tribal leaders basically told them whatever story they wanted to, and that was their sole source of information. Well, I'll go to you first on that, Jeff, because you were there, but I want to hear your thoughts on it as well, Randy.
Yeah. There's a couple of things that you got to consider. The huge degree of illiteracy in Afghanistan. Even if you had newspapers, people would have been wrapping their fish in it because they couldn't read. Because the Taliban had shut down all the schools, basically. They had some television, although it didn't work. I remember meeting with the director of the local TV station. It was a state thing, kind of like a PBS for Afghanistan. But he was hitting me up for a new transmitter because it was old Russian equipment and it just quit working. And he still had a studio and still had the TV station and all this. It just couldn't broadcast. And so he was desperate to get a new transmitter so he could broadcast. I'm like, dude, that's not what I'm here for. Not my problem. But yeah, there really was very little way to get news. Cell phones were a luxury item for people. We had to not give them to agents just because if you had a cell phone, you had to be an agent because no one else could afford one except someone working for the Americans.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it was, it's really backwards. And, even if you had a newspaper, if people don't know how to read, what's the point?
Good point. Good point.
Actually, their ballots, when they had their first election for the different people running for office, they had to have pictures of either the person running for office or the logo of their political party. Because if you put their name on there, nobody could read it.
Wow. I didn't know that. Randy, when Baghdad fell and you guys went in there, did you have a chance to talk to any of the Iraqi people that maybe whether you had a translator or they spoke English? I'm curious for what their perception was when you guys came in after their government, as far as we know, what was broadcast told them that they were invincible and they were going to beat Uncle Sam. Clearly didn't happen. But did you have any encounters like that, Randy?
Well, sure, man. I did a lot of street foot patrols during that time, for the next several weeks, and for the most part, it's kind of like what I'd said earlier, and Jeff has alluded to it, and many of us, certainly during the day when we were out doing these patrols, many of these people this was like a big party. Remember I told you there was 3 days of looting? They were partying the whole time. This was big time party time.
Wow.
One of the things that started happening, I started wondering because at night, bad things started happening. There was a lot of people out. We did have martial law. So you either got arrested or shot dead, depending on, depending on what you did, what the person out did. And plenty of them did get shot, but more got arrested and brought in. However, during the day, like I said, when we would go through town or even the markets and we were walking down, people would invite us in, wanted us to come in their homes. They wanted us to sit down and have tea with them. They were just so happy now that they had freedom. But it was clear to us, and again, you did have to have an interpreter because I had 6 months of Arabic. That wasn't till later. And the little list they gave us was worthless when I first went over. And so we really couldn't speak. We had to have an interpreter. But like I said, they were all happy, man, and giving us tea, and we're just happy as could be. It was party time. It really wasn't until a few months later that changed and never really came back, although there were still always people glad that we were there, or just less.
Appreciate that, Randy. Thank you. So we're going to move into segment number 3, which I titled The Accelerating Global Power Shift. I'll just add one thing to what Randy said maybe 5 minutes ago or so. Our intelligence in the Middle East comes from Khalid. Our intelligence domestically comes from a network of people that we've built over many, many years that predates Khalid being in the picture. And the latest from Khalid is that essentially right now the attack window is open through till February 17th when Ramadan starts. And then it closes, then it reopens March 18th if 9/11 2.0 doesn't happen between now and February the 17th. So as far as the Middle East is concerned and what's going on over there, we have to go off of what Khalid tells us. The thing is to pull off these CCTAs like they did in Mumbai and Paris 2015, you have to have teams of people monitoring things, everything that's unfolding in real time, so that they can pivot to do the maximum amount of damage as they undertake the attacks. So when we hit Iran, in the fall, we blew up some of the call them control centers, and that it put a little bit of a delay into things. And Khalid spoke about that at the time. So if memory serves me right, it essentially pushed the opening of the attack window from mid-November into the new year, which is why we are now. So there might be some confusion over a delay in the window because it did get delayed, but that's related way back to the strikes when we hit Iran in the fall. All right, so segment 3, accelerating global power shift. So this type of massive terror attack on U.S. soil, rightfully so, is going to, make our focus inward. And there's a good chance that rivals like China and Russia in particular use that opportunity to expand their influences in places like Asia, Europe, even Africa. So as we deal with, recovery and rebuilding, those other powers could really step up their economic aid and military pacts with what are currently kind of shaky allies to making them really solid allies, as well as our shaky allies, getting them to change teams and shifting away from our influence to Chinese and Russia influence, communism or communist influence. So it's highly likely this distraction, it's way more than a distraction, but it's a distraction, will likely weaken our leverage in global talks. And that in turn will let some of these, foreign countries to push their agendas even harder and redraw allegiances that they feel is more in their interest with the commies than it is with us. So with that being said, Jeff, I want to come to you first. I'm curious what your thoughts are on how could 9/11 2.0 open the door for competitors and adversaries to grab more control over things like key trade routes and resources. And I mean, like we spoke about uranium earlier, there's a whole lot of resources that goes beyond uranium that we have to bring in from elsewhere.
Well, it's going to be simple. One, we're going to be looking internally for a long, to figure out what happened, to fix it and go back. And then we're going to, the knee-jerk reaction is going to be, and it's, like it was the first time, find out who did it and then go kill them. Well, if they're in the Middle East and we go in there to go find the bad guys and kill them in the Middle East, we're not paying attention to Africa. We're not paying attention to South America. We're not paying attention to Central America. We're not paying attention to Europe or anywhere else. So, it's that kind of shiny thing. We're looking over here. They do something on the other side. So it's misdirection.
Yeah, I figured you would go that direction, but I wanted to confirm it anyway. Randy, I think that we're already seeing, some pretty big signs of power moving towards the east and away from the west. And I personally think that 9/11 2.0 has the potential to accelerate that even more. So I'm thinking of things like the Chinese initiatives like Belt and Road, where they go into a country that has no infrastructure and they say, look, we'll build the infrastructure for you. You can make payments on it, knowing full well that they'll default on payments. And then they'll just turn around and say, well, we own all of this stuff in your country now, especially stuff related to natural resources. That's been going on for quite some time. What do you foresee happening to our relationships with those countries that have natural resources that we want and we need, but we have to take our eye off of to look after our own house post 9/11 2.0?
Well, we've really seen that through the Biden years, didn't we? I mean, we saw a lot of stuff that's never happened before, like China and Russia cozy up to each other like has never happened before. And now they're almost like true partners, again, because of the things we've said before, enemy of your enemy, your enemy of my enemy of your enemy is we're friends, basically. I don't know. I messed that up, but you know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
So the reality is, they're out there watching and waiting too. So every step we take, of course, they're going to go to where we're not paying attention to at the moment, right? That's what any one of us would do. That's how you would get it done. So I think that there is that potential, one, because we don't know what it's going to, how far back it would set this country financially. Certainly if the power goes out for, months, that could really change the landscape, not just in this country, but globally significantly. Would definitely hinder anything that we're going to try to do to mitigate those things. And then again, as the old saying goes, right? You take your out, you're out the ball of the prize. What happens? And then don't complain about the ball. The ball drops or the way the ball bounces when you drop. All that will apply, because we will definitely be focused on one particular area, while the rest of it kind of goes by the wayside. So, and we also know that they have people here too. We know there was a lot of Chinese men that came in over the 4 years. Probably a lot of Russians too. Are they going to help in on this thing? Very well might. Certainly a possibility. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, true story. So, Jeff, in your opinion, if we teamed up with more allies post 9/11 2.0, like during the recovery phase, do you think that would communicate weakness to the rest of the world, and that the Trump admin would avoid doing that? Or do you think it'd just be a non-issue and best for us to team up with others because there's strength in numbers?
Yeah, I think it'd be important to team up with like-minded countries. Now, that may not be many in Europe, because they're all basically giving away their own farm there. But I think you think about countries, Japan, because Japan knows the threat of China as much or more than anybody else. You think about El Salvador, where they've done the Bukele went in there and built the prisons, and now he's got one of the safest countries in the world. And just yesterday, a woman won the election to be president of Costa Rica, and she ran on, basically, let's do to Costa Rica what Bukele did to El Salvador. And she wants to open a CCOT type prison and fill it full of all the scumbags in her country. So you need to work with people. And you've got Milei down in Argentina. There are a number of countries where they get it. They understand that communism, socialism, liberalism, wokeism, none of that crap works. And it's dangerous, and it hurts people. So yeah, work with, got to have friends, man, and pick the right friends. You don't want friends that are going to be sponging off of you and causing you more grief than they're fixing. But yeah, why not pick a friend?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. So, Randy, last kick at this one before we move into the next segment. Can you think of any strategies that we could leverage that would keep some of these countries on our side, but not draw us into more conflicts abroad? Because I think we're going to have to really turn inwards to pull out of this. And who knows, maybe we don't pull out of it, right? Maybe we end up balkanized in a civil war. But curious what your thoughts are on how we avoid the worst case scenario.
Well, you know how the old world works, right? If you've got something I want, it's a whole lot easier to make a deal, isn't it? I think that, we definitely can. Well, no, honestly, I don't have too much faith with a lot of people that are in office right now and a lot of these agencies. So could we? Oh, I have no doubt there are some things that we could do and some strategies to help keep our allies on our side, basically. But kind of the way it's gone, and seems like it is today, it takes keeping your thumb on them, so to speak, in a way. But we also look at how all of Europe is right now, and of course they're on the side of the global elites, and everybody wants to say Europe are our allies, but really are they? That's a good question. And what could they do for us? Now, I'm sure there's some goods and services that we could probably get for them, but really a thing like this, What good were they going to be to us? Hell, they weren't any good to for themselves during World War II or World War One, either one. So honestly, I don't think Europe can do much about it. Now, closer to home, whether it be Cuba, South America, Canada, who's lost their freaking mind. I do think there's some ways that we probably could reel them in. I think Trump's done a good job of that already. But of course, we don't have a big conflict going right now with all our focus on that either. I think that we're in a pickle. That's what I really think.
Well, good choice of words, Randy.
Hey, those things were good too. I gotta admit, they were good, far better than I expected.
So I got an email from a Guardian, by the way, today, who sent me their receipt from Wasatch Wagyu, and they bought over $100 in jerky, and a big chunk of it was dill pickle. So I had to tell them, look, like, you have to send the dill pickle to me. We will replace the dill pickle with a better flavor. This is my cross to bear, just leave it alone. So, of course, we're joking about WasatchWagyu.com, best jerky in the world, bar none. Like, it's crack cocaine. And golly, it's so freaking addictive. So, discount code, by the way, SD20. I've got a meeting with Greg tomorrow, Greg Wasatch, by the way, and we're going to come up with some interesting promos for the balance of the month for y'all. I want to quickly mention our friends at Carnival as well. Again, there's so much bullshit going on with meat supply right now in America. It's disgusting, especially beef, what they're doing to it. There's multiple reports of freaking grocery stores taking the meat off the shelf. When it's expired, it's turned gray. They dunk it in fresh blood. They somehow infuse it with ammonia. They wrap it back up and they stick it out there and tack another week onto it for the expiry date. We've seen steaks from people where it's glued together, offcuts, and they're trying to say, oh, this is a prime rib cut, X amount of dollars per pound. And you can take a spoon and press down on it, and the meat literally turns to like this gray goo. It's just absolutely disgusting. Not from these guys. I'm telling you, the guys that own Carnival, hardcore Americans and perfectionists. So grass finished, not just grass fed, no antihistamines, no antibiotics, no nothing bad for you in it whatsoever. Carnival.com, sign up for a subscription and you freeze your price for 12 months. If you don't sign up for a subscription, use the code EATMEAT, you'll get 10% off on that. So with that being said, let's get into segment number 4. We're moving along at a pretty good pace tonight. We're trying to make sure that Jeff doesn't end up in the doghouse here. So we got about 40 minutes max left to go here. So, all right. So segment number 4, I titled Positioning of Authoritarian Regimes as Alternatives. So with democracies reeling from attacks and internal chaos, this is just a historical perspective. Strongman governments start looking like quick fixes, right? They offer stability through tight control and fast decisions. California during Charlie 19 would be a great example of appealing to the sheeple in our country who have outsourced their security for their entire life. They know nothing but outsourcing security, and they could give a crap about giving up their civil liberties to kill some or to save some Darwin from killing himself, from doing something stupid. But it's like a moth to a flame for those types of people. They will look at the crazy people. It's not just masks. Some of the garb that these people wore. I mean, if you're ever wondering who the crazies were in our society, that was a pretty good indicator of it right there. Also, you will find, and they do it all the time, it doesn't matter if they're rhinos or Democrats, they'll use propaganda, to say, well, we have to crack down on civil liberties because it's the only way we can deal with all these threats. And they will say, look, we're much safer, than those other guys who want to let you have your civil liberties. And this could be domestically, it could also be in countries other than the United States. And, I think the people who have this live in constant fear, 99% of them probably addicted to SSRIs, which only amplifies the fear. They'll eat that shit up like there's no tomorrow. But, whether people like us stand up or not will probably be the determining factor. As long as we don't say, yeah, do whatever you want, as long as it doesn't affect me. That's got us nowhere, by the way, for the past 50 years. Hopefully we don't do that when this comes around this time, meaning real Americans, TM Randy Nance. But anyway, with that being said, Jeff, I'm coming to you first here, and I'm curious what your thoughts are on, well, actually, it just dawned on me. There's a bit of a juxtaposition here. I was going to ask you, how do authoritarian leaders use media to make their systems seem better, after big crises hit and so on and so forth? And then I thought to myself, well, our media does that. So, I guess it's probably just more of the same old, right? But maybe give us some anecdotal examples from past history of, a state, falling off a cliff, whether it be war induced or natural, causes, and basically lying, like you said earlier. They just lie about the situation and run with it.
The best example and the longest running example is North Korea. I mean, North Korea and South Korea came to be after World War II. They were actually Japanese colonies. And then after the war, the Koreans wanted to be their own countries. And you had South Korea, which was capitalist and democratic. And then you had North Korea, which was, of course, under the influence of the communist Chinese, and the Soviets wasn't. Well, they have low life expectancy. They have a shrinking population. It's just an ungodly place to live. They starve. They have famines. They have everything. And I saw a show where some Western doctors went in there and they were helping Koreans who were blind because they had cataracts. And these American doctors went in there and were performing surgery on these people, and they could see for the first time in decades. And the first thing they said, "Oh, I have to thank the dear leader for fixing my eyes."
Wow.
Dear leader didn't do shit.
Wow.
Everything is, the dear leader. And you'll see these documentaries or little things of Americans who occasionally go there and they come back. And one of them was taking a picture of the Kim Il-sung, who was the original founder. He's the grandfather of the current leader. And they took a picture of a statue of him, but it wasn't framed right. And the police came up and threatened to put him in jail for trying to demean the dear leader by making him look small. Well, the statue's like 80 feet tall, it's ridiculous. But yeah, they are insane. And if you get caught, if you were a North Korean and you got caught listening to K-pop music, South Korean pop music,
okay,
death penalty.
Wow.
Yeah. If you got caught watching a Western movie, death penalty.
So as you were saying that, I'm hearing that, fat Korean guy, Gangnam Style, running through my head as you're saying that.
Which he disappeared too, right? I think that guy's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. He was one hit wonder.
Yeah.
Plus he was a total jerk, and people found out he was a total jerk, and they went, "Yeah, screw him."
Yeah, that's too funny.
Yeah, and I think in North Korea, didn't they build some cities, like one or two, Jeff? Like they're old cities with lights and everything. They're supposed to look like
close to the border,
driving right off the DMZ, so we could see them. But there is no one that lives there.
They're just facades. There's nothing there. And even if you go to Panmunjom, the Peace Village, you can actually walk into, depending on the relations at the time, you can walk into North Korea and take pictures in Panmunjom. And the Korean guys are sitting there all stiff in their perfect little uniforms, but they're probably starving to death. Actually, my daughter-in-law went there, and she'd gone to South Korea for work, and she went up to Panmunjom and crossed into North Korea at Panmunjom and bought a North Korean beer and sent it to me. And she didn't tell me she was doing it. It just arrives in the mail. I get this package, and there's this bottle of beer, and there's not an English letter anywhere on the whole thing. It's all in Korean. And I was like, what the hell is this? And the lady goes, "Oh, yeah, it's from North Korea. Did you drink it?" I go, "Hell no, it's probably formaldehyde." But I still have it, though. I still have the bottle. It's sitting under my bar there, and it's still full. They do that. But they have landmines separating the two countries. And it's so bad. People will run across the minefield trying to get to the south. and they know they're going to get shot at and they may get blown up, but they try it anyway. And if you do get to the South, they punish your family.
Ooh, yeah.
Well, and look at some of the satellite views at night. South Korea is all lit up because they're, and then
North Korea is
just
black,
dark.
except for Pyongyang. The
Yeah.
capital's the only place there's a little bit of light.
Yeah.
So, question for you, Randy. What is it that drives people to essentially have Stockholm syndrome and be drawn to these, maniacal leaders, whether they be domestic or foreign? What drives that in your mind?
Well, Stockholm syndrome is a psychological effect, right? And it apparently it happens somewhat naturally. I mean, it happened because it's happened to a lot of people over the centuries. There's no doubt about that. And for some reason, I think it's, one of the things they taught you in SEER, right? That everybody has a breaking point. It doesn't matter who you are, how bad you think you are. If you're in captivity, and certainly by another state, and they want some information out of you, and they start torturing you, everybody has a certain breaking point. Well, you do also psychologically. And I think what happens, and I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist or any of that, I haven't even taken any classes in that, but what it appears to me from the outside is basically once you are captured and there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you can do about it. At some point, they're probably going to torture you. There's going to be some sort of pain involved. And then there's also going to be a repeat of some sort of lie, right? That they want you to take on as the story. I saw a case of this a little while back on one of the detective shows I saw, right? And this young couple had a dog. They went out and went camping into the woods. And some guy comes along, if I remember right, kind of makes friends with them, right? And so him and the husband are going to go shoot a target. Well, as it turns out, they hear some shots and the guy's coming back and he tells her husband's been shot. And then the dog takes off after him and he shoots the dog. Well, I think he had her for 3, 4, 5 days, maybe a week. He obviously, right after he did that, he took her further into the woods, basically raped her every day for multiple times. But he also kept telling her that it was an accident over and over and over, all day, all night. He kept telling her it was an accident. And then at some point he offered to her, and now this is several days. I don't think they were in the woods more than a week, but that's long enough. He agreed to take her in if she would tell the authorities that was an accident. And in the beginning, that's exactly what she did. And it wasn't until a few days went by and that she's back with her family that the whole story actually came out. And somewhere psychologically, I think that once everybody, again, has a breaking point. That's not just physically, it's mentally. And once you break mentally, then I think people turn into more like a baby again, mentally at least. Mm-hmm. And you're able to absorb whatever somebody's telling you. And for whatever reason, when they say it enough times, you start to believe it. And heck, we're watching it right now with what we all call Trump derangement syndrome, right? These people have now been mentally and psychologically warped to the point that they've heard this, as I've mentioned now, since 2014, because that's when he came down the staircase and announced that he was going to run as a Republican. And ever since then, we've seen this onslaught on Donald Trump. He's not a perfect person. None of us ever said he was. But the fact is, you'll look at the left today, and now I've even seen some of my friends, they're all like, well, if you're still defending Trump, he's a pedophile, you're no longer my friend, and I don't care. And that's where the left is. So as you mentioned, when they come back into power, all these people that now have this Stockholm Trump derangement syndrome, it's going to be perfectly acceptable for them to either imprison us, torture us, or kill us. And as you mentioned, when that pendulum swings back and the left takes charge again, that's exactly what's going to happen. And anybody that thinks that there's going to be something differently happen, you're sadly mistaken. They will take charge and they will come after us all. They're not going to just demonetize and deplatform us, Chris. They're going to come looking for retribution, whether it be prison or death, or both?
Well, and multiple people on that side have been broadcasting that. You have to believe people when they tell you who they are.
They really are starting to do that now. And that's why I'm telling you, that's how far they've led them down this path. Now it's perfectly acceptable for them. If we voted for Trump, as this one girl said yesterday, take our internet, our phones away for 4 years because we voted for Trump.
That's right.
We all know it won't stop there. That's just the first little excuse. But once they get everybody into power, they will do whatever they deem necessary.
Well, I mean, question, Jeff, is how would you classify retribution against somebody who doesn't share your viewpoint by punishing them and taking away their liberties? Isn't that what fascism is?
Yeah, that's Nazism. That's what Hitler did, and actually it's also a hallmark of communism too. Mao did it, and the Soviets did it too. Anyone who stood up or said, "I don't believe this," you were convicted of wrongthink and sent to prison or executed, or you had your life destroyed. Hitler did it. All of his political enemies, the Social Democrats and all the other parties that were in Germany before the Nazis finally took over in 1936, they were all outlawed. And a lot of the leaders were thrown in concentration camps. People need to realize concentration camps in Germany started before the war started. I think, was it Dachau or Birkenwald? One of those, I think, was started in like 1937, 2 years before the war. And they started with, quote unquote, criminals, deviants. If you were a homosexual, you could be put into a concentration camp. If you were mentally, you just mentally retarded, they would euthanize you. They were very strong into the whole eugenics thing of trying to clean up the race. And that's why that was their excuse for killing Jews, killing gypsies, killing homosexuals, killing, mentally retarded people, and killing political opponents.
Yeah, well, like I say, it's what they're railing against is exactly what
they accuse you of doing what they're doing.
Exactly. So
that is classic.
We're ready to go into the final segment here. I just want to bring up a comment here from Josh Wilkinson. Comms are more important than anyone expects, especially in this day and age. People are addicted to their phones. It's going to cheat another factor people don't see. Good luck. I'm thinking maybe autocorrect got that, but regardless, number one, this is why I built our Element server, ultra secure and private. Again, we've had attacks, we've repelled them. And even if they killed our internet connection, I can move that server somewhere else, 3 different offshore data centers. So we're trying to be proactive to make sure that our community can remain in contact with each other. We're also this close to launching our mother of all SHTF comms video and articles. Expect to see some content on that sometime next week. And that's in my wheelhouse, so that's why I talk comms frequently. For example, we have prototype radios coming from POClink that, in addition to FRS and LTE, they're adding Wi-Fi as well. And the reason that's interesting to me is a few weeks ago in Marlin County, south side of the Bay, you had all 3 cell phone carriers go down. You had 911 go down, which is not unusual, and it gets shunted elsewhere. But for both things to happen at the same time is kind of unusual. And there were people struggling to stay in touch with each other. Well, the internet stayed up, and people still had Wi-Fi to their routers, et cetera, et cetera. So these new POC links are backwards compatible, but they had Wi-Fi calling as well, which would have worked like a champ in that type of scenario. So I know I can hear Jason P saying right now 50s 49, 49s 48, 48s 47, but having multiple redundant backups for your comms, super, super important. Josh, appreciate the comment that you left there. So moving into segment number 5, altering liberty and security balance. Again, you decide what you want. You decide what you're willing to give up to get it. Some of us, textbook libertarians, lowercase L, not capital L, those guys are loonies. I'm not willing to give up my civil liberties so some dumbass doesn't become a Darwin candidate. So after 9/11 2.0, you're going to see the feds and state governments ramping up surveillance, putting limits in place, and they'll say it's to prevent threats, right? So in other words, when they jam you into your 15-minute city as part of, Agenda 2030, if you don't have a high enough social credit score, well, you can't leave the city. If you don't have a high enough, credit score, social credit score, you're coming from somewhere else, you can't come into the city. Limits on how many days of the year you can use your car. We just covered this last week. They're already doing this in Britain. You get to drive your car 100 days per year, and after that, shut down, sort of thing. These will be argued on behalf of the tyrants to basically say, look, the only way we can keep you safe is to lock everything down, and that way, if the jihadis try to get through the perimeter of your 15-minute city, we'll catch them and we'll protect you from them. But you have to give up all of your Fourth Amendment rights in the process, essentially. And I'd like to know if there's any instance of our rights being taken away and then given back to us. This is always a situation of you give them an inch, they take a mile, and then you never get those things back again. So there's a high probability, like Randy stated, the new normal is going to look very authoritarian, and it's going to boil down to people begging the tyrants to take away their liberties to provide them with safety because they're weak. They're weak-minded, they're weak physically, and they just can't get their heads wrapped around the fact that they should be able to protect themselves again because they've outsourced their security. It won't take long, maybe one generation, it'll completely, start to reshape society. 2 generations later, it'll become, folklore. Oh, we never really had those liberties back in the day. That's all just, it's revisionist history. That's a conspiracy theory. You can see it unfolding. It's not hard.
No, it'll be racist at that point.
Well, everything's racist.
It was racist to do that. That's why we stopped doing it.
Well, I mean, how many lunatics have you seen in recent years try to claim that math is racist?
Apparently writing and reading is now too. I don't know. It appears to be.
Well, showing up to work on time is also racist.
That's right. Or working hard.
Yeah, working at all.
Well, yeah, that's a very white thing, of course, Shame on you for having good work ethic. So there was some school in California, they lost their minds last week. They went out on some anti-ice protest. And these kids are throwing, school laptops around and destroying shit and everything. And that particular school has a 15% of their students are capable of passing the bare minimum mathematical test for high school. 15%. So how are they going to run the most advanced society ever built when they can't add up 2 + 2 = 4 because that's racist? Anyway, moving on from there, we'll wrap up this 5th segment here. First to you, Jeff, just because you've worked in all these different countries and stuff, explain, I guess it's human nature would be my guess of how these tyrannical security measures get put in place to protect you, but they change daily life for people forever and they never give you back. It's just like, cutting your taxes. No such thing.
Actually, that's not true. They have taken rights away and then given them back. Ask the Japanese that were interned, Japanese Americans who were interned, they were released and then given reparations afterwards. And there are sometimes which they are temporary measures. You'll see curfews and stuff after natural disasters, and when it's over, they roll them back. But it's only because there's no economic incentive for them to keep them in place. But once they can take a right, if the right they're taking away gives them more power, you won't get it back.
Yeah, true story. I was thinking in terms of things like the Patriot Act in particular.
Yeah, well,
basically secret warrants and, lax requirements to get a warrant. those sort of things.
Well, and the other thing is when they get caught doing something illegal, they just pass a law to make it legal for them to do it in the first place. They were doing shit for years with carnivore and all that, scooping up everybody's emails and all that. So then they just pass the Patriot Act and make all that legal.
Yeah, true story, true story. So Randy, last question on the main topic goes to you tonight. I'm curious, is there any way to snap these sheep out of their fear loop and get them to object to giving up civil liberties, or is it a forever thing with these types of people who would just, lay down and let the tyrants run over them?
Well, I think in the Bible it says in the end that's what happens, right? So I would expect, and then we look at how bad this has gotten, right? You've said it many times that you think now we're so diametrically opposed. There is no unifying, no matter what happens from here forward. And part of that is because of what we've been mentioning. And you look at the people that still identify with voting for or supporting the left. And again, there is no two parties, people. There's more comments in here. Guess we have no more new people. But the reality is nobody on this show believes that there's two parties. We still say left and right because that's what everybody says. But those people that are on the ground, like all the people in Minnesota, all the idiots we see in LA, and all these people, there is no coming back for them, Chris. They're so completely lost, confused, and delirious that they don't even know they're confused, lost, and delirious. And so I don't think there's any coming back from those folks that have gone that far, because as we're seeing now, as we just mentioned, after Good and Preddy, now all of a sudden the people that are the idiots want the Second Amendment again and are walking around with airsoft guns on their chest looking like they're tough. And, so now they're ready to use their guns. Now we see them talk. We've seen more of them saying that, including this one lady that's now said, when we get back into power, we're going to yank all the stuff from the MAGA folks. There's no helping those folks. They're so psychologically torn, beat up and gone and mush that it's like what the Bible does says. And we are watching it in real time. And I think all these vaccines and boosters have something to do with it, along with the SSRIs. All that stuff has cooked these people's noodle, and there is no uncooking it. There's no way to unring that bell. So it will be up to the rest of us, hopefully, because again, I still believe, and I firmly believe this, that they're down to 20% of the population, and all that's still millions of people. It's not the 80%. I think independents and people that believe like us are the 80%. And but it's because the media and these other people on the TV always wants to talk about how, or you'll see that they'll say, oh, we're the majority. No, you're not. And you can tell by the comments and the posts on social media. And my point to that is, let's go back to 2014, 2015, 2016, and all the way through his first term. Do you remember how if anybody said anything good about Trump, you just got waylaid and abused and beat up by thousands of comments and reactions? Well, now it's the opposite. You'll see people that come and say that about Trump or this or that. They've got very few comments, very few reactions. It's because they are a very small part of the population. And when they get stupid enough to kick this off, it's not going to be very hard to wipe them out. Our problem will be it's because the system and the shadow government wants that to happen, so they'll come and protect them from us. How that will happen, I don't know. We'll just take a little snippet from Maduro and realize that we don't want to find out.
Yeah, I agree, Randy. And I put this comment up because they turned into zombies, because Cindy and I were walking the dogs yesterday, and I made a comment to her. I said, in reality, we actually are living in this post-apocalyptic world infested with zombies, because every single one of these SSRI junkies is essentially a chemical zombie. And I agree with you, Randy. I think once they've crossed a certain line, there's no coming back from that. But Jeff, I said Randy got the last question, but it actually prompted him. So now you get the last question. Somebody like Saul Alinsky, maybe it was Marx, I don't know, said something to the effect of, it only takes a handful of small groups in a handful of areas to execute a color revolution, and the rest of the people who are not close by geographically will just accept it. I don't foresee that happening, but I actually heard some people that were, in these videos coming out of Minnesota that were saying the exact same thing. I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, because, I mean, you look at in different cultures, there's the center of the culture, and if you can take over the center of the culture, you take over the culture. The United States really isn't like that, because you can take over LA and people down south will go, man, good luck with you, buddy. That place sucks. But if you're in, and I think about if you're in Iran and you can take over Tehran, which is the capital and it's the cultural center of the country, you've gone a long way to taking over the whole country. And that's kind of what happened to the Shah. When the Ayatollah Khomeini first came to power, that's where it really happened. Yeah, there were riots and uprisings in other parts of the country, but the main thing was what was going on in Tehran. If you go to a country, you look at Spain, there's really kind of two cultural centers. There's Barcelona and Madrid. There's, the old Spain and Madrid, and then there's the Catalan in Barcelona. But that's kind of it. If you can take over those two, you pretty much have the country. So yeah, you can, if you pick and choose where you want to take over. I mean, you look at Ukraine, once they take, when they had their color revolution, once they got a hold of Kiev, where the government is, everyone else just fell into place.
Yeah, good examples, Jeff. I appreciate that very much. So I think we can wrap up the main topic tonight just by saying, look, the threat is real. It's escalating. Do the things that you need to do. So harden your home, build your comms contingencies, stack up food, long shelf life food. That's why I love Carnival here, because this is Hurricane Central and we have a subscription ourselves. And, you don't need refrigeration to keep this. Just 25-year shelf life, reconstitutes in 5 to 10 minutes. Carnival.com. I'll put links in the live chat when we go to the final video. But I got one more thing I want to squeeze in really quickly here, guys. I actually meant to include it earlier, and this is from J-Dub, who's one of our guardians, and he posted this in our private guardians chat on our Element server. This is pretty interesting, Randy. You'll dig this as well. So my youngest stepson is serving in Fort Benning, and he's been in charge of training 5-man teams on defending against drones, like the drones we're seeing being used in Ukraine. This is pretty interesting. So you can see the headline says the U.S. Army turned rifles into drone killers. No mods, just a magazine swap. How it works. So you've got your 5.56 by 45 anti-drone rounds that destabilizes after it comes out of the barrel and breaks into multiple sub-projectiles and creates a wide interception zone. So you're talking at 25 to 35 meters away. So call it like 28 to 40 yards away. It spreads out to 30 to 40 centimeters, which will be a foot to call it 16 inches ish. And when it's 40 to 50 meters away, which is closer to probably like 45 yards or 55 yards, it's 60 to 80 centimeters, which would be 2 feet to 2 feet and call it 8 inches approximately. And why it matters: works in standard AR-15s, M4s, MCXs, no new weapon systems, faster than shotguns, cheaper than lasers, and directed energy weapons. They've got a longer range that's 5 projectiles, and then they've got the close range that's 8 projectiles. And the test results have a 90% hit rate, effective even from short barrels. Energy drops quickly when fired upwards. Safety for infantry use. Big picture, this is a lesson that was learned in Ukraine, where drones have dominated. Infantry needs some sort of last-ditch air defense. So this is essentially every soldier into a counter drone node. And the source for this is from, I can't read this bottom corner, MILLTARNLY. Never heard of them before, but Randy, come to you first. Thoughts on that? It was a pretty cool way to deal with the drone problem.
Well, I knew they would, because as we mentioned during that's what they were working out, all these SOPs for the drone warfare, both offensively and offensively. And then we all saw the video footage, though all those Russians or even the Ukrainians, but we saw more about the Russians, obviously. All those ground pounders had zero chance against all these drones, including one when I saw, I was like, as I mentioned on here, one of the tactics we use, like when artillery rounds are coming out, you got to run 400 yards, right? And then you need a rally point so you know where everybody was going back to. Well, I saw that exact drill, right? One came in and blew up and they all started running. Problem was this thing followed them all along the way and dusted every one of them off. And I thought to myself, boy, if you're on the ground. So when I went in, I was in the mechanized infantry first, and believe it or not, I didn't really, I didn't appreciate the mechanized infantry. Let's just put it that way. One, I never wanted to be in a tank or a Bradley because everything on the battlefield is trying to kill that thing. I would rather take my chance on my own 2 feet. But after watching some of those videos of the Russians getting smoked, I was like, boy, those days are gone. So I'm glad. And I knew that we would come up with something, because we're not going to get rid of the infantry, because like I said, it doesn't matter. Now, drones may take this part at some point, but you're never going to completely destroy an enemy until you have boots on the ground and someone goes in there and roots out the rest of it. We should have learned in World War II, but certainly we found out in Afghanistan, you cannot bomb a population into submission. It cannot happen. Doesn't matter how many bombs you drop. And the only exception to that is when you drop nuclear bombs, right? That is the only exception. But of course, everybody knows how bad that is for all of us to do that. So none of us want to, or we should not. My only other question for this thing is, I'm like, man, I'm looking at the stuff coming out of that barrel. We already shoot those barrels out very quickly in the Army, right? Because I think somewhere around 5,000 rounds should toast that, if not before, toast that barrel. You're looking at what they're spitting out, and they're talking about just a magazine change. I guarantee that shortens the life of those barrels, but hey, you got to do what you got to do. And I certainly wouldn't not use the weapon because it's going to shorten the life of my barrel.
Yeah, for sure. Jeff, before you comment on this, I just want to say I did look this up earlier today. This is a real thing. So this is not, some fake story that somebody has put out there. Then I texted my youngest stepson and asked him about it. He said, yeah, absolutely, they're using this. So what we tried, I'm trying to remember what it was called. We bought these shotgun shells.
Shot the nets.
Skynet. Yeah. And it was shotgun shells where the slug was cut into 6 pieces, connected to a net, and supposedly they were just complete garbage. We paid $20 a round, and it was just hokey bullshit. But this stuff looks like the real deal. Your thoughts, Jeff?
Yeah, we had this when I was a kid. It was called rat shot.
Right.
It wasn't as high velocity. It was a different gun, but
yeah, that's what I was going to say.
It's nonetheless, it's pretty cool.
It's cool if it works. Yeah, it's great.
Well, I think it's
right,
cool
if it works.
But it's all about kinetic energy. You put kinetic energy on the drone, and you got to be able to put it on the drone. If you don't, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's an interesting, backup to the, what are they called? I'm trying to remember what the name begins with an L, the DEWs that take drones down with an HPM, like a high power microwave.
LRADs or something?
Lenonis or something like that. Leonard, something like that.
Leonidas would be
it. Yeah, thank you.
It's after the Greek Spartan king.
So if the drones get past those weapons, this is kind of like your last ditch thing, which is a whole lot better than what they had before, because I can tell you from Jackson instructing this stuff, saying to me, he's like, man, you wouldn't believe what we're teaching these guys. We're telling them to, run and hide when you see the drones, and then throw down a smoke bomb. Well, most drones have thermal cameras on them.
That's
so
right.
you have all the smoke around you that you want. It doesn't make any freaking difference because of your thermal signature. And I said, okay, well, what do you do after that? He says, well, you try and shoot it down with regular 5.56 or you die most likely sort of thing. So
Yeah, you have to be a very good shot to be able to put a 1.556 round or even a several on that drone for sure.
yeah, exactly. So it's that time of the night, Randy. 3, 2, 1. All right. So the Carnival hero of the day. This is from Juanita Broderick. This lady is a hero. She took immediate action when she saw a driver slumped over behind the wheel of a car. This is pretty slick. Kudos to her for this. 51 seconds. There's no sound in this video at all, but we'll walk through it. So here's the car that the driver slumped over in the seat. This lady from all the way back there spots the driver slumped over the steering wheel and starts, waving people off. And obviously the guy doesn't, or woman, whoever the driver is, doesn't really have their toe into the accelerator, but people come out of nowhere, which is fantastic. And they managed to get the car stopped. Now, here's a good reason that every pocket knife you have should have a glass breaker on the end.
Yep.
Because you're going to see, there you go. This guy's trying to punch the window out and he just broke his hand. I'm joking, but basically, and then you see somebody else. Tempered glass.
Yep.
You got to hit around the edges of tempered glass to get it to do its thing, but they knock it out here. And there's a guy crawls through the back. It probably didn't tickle because the glass in the side windows is not the same as the front. And it's sharper than all get out. How do I know? Because I've been T-boned and had my face shredded by that stuff. Randy, your thoughts on the hero of the day? I mean, good job, huh?
Man, she humped it on up there, didn't she? And then, of course, everybody else piled in because she wasn't going to do it on her own, but she at least got it started because she saw what had happened. Kudos to her. And on that, I just want to add another little plug for Carnival. So, as you know, my girlfriend Janet's been going through a lot of health issues for the last 2.5 years between breast cancer and kidney failure. And boy, with the antibiotics and everything else, they have tore her stomach up. Can hardly eat anything. I mean, literally almost nothing. She can eat a little bit of scrambled eggs, no seasoning and whatsoever, and Carnival chicken. Carnival chicken, she can eat a little bit without getting sick. And I said, it's probably because, and I tried to do the commercial like you, no mRNAs, no antibodies. I tried to go through the whole thing, but also in case those Carnival guys are listening, maybe it got overwhelmed from all the clients tonight, but she's in it right now trying to add some in the cart and it won't add. So.
Well, good. Well, I'll share that with the guys as soon as we get off of here. Yep. Ask her to restart her web browser, and if that doesn't work, restart whatever the device is.
Did you hear that, honey? Restart your browser.
Yeah. It's because somebody else had that problem with Safari, I think it was. When they switched over to Google Chrome, it worked fine. It was something to do with Safari was a problem. Jeff, your thoughts on this? Is great situational awareness that we don't normally see. Kudos to her.
No, that was just... Yeah, she was smart. She did what everybody says they would do, but never does.
Yep.
Paying attention, though. I mean,
she obviously wasn't on her phone. How about that? And a woman.
There you go. All right. So let's hit the conflicted question of the night. After a disaster completely changed the way modern society functioned in a blink of an eye, Morgan found himself needing to get home on foot. He had to get there quickly as people would begin to get desperate with each day that went by and things didn't get back to normal. Food and water would eventually run out, not to be replenished again the way people were used to. At each night, he had to make camp to rest and get some sleep. If you had to make it home on foot from far away and none of the modern conveniences were available, where would you choose to spend the night and why? So I'm going to come to you first on this, Randy.
All right. Well, I'm gonna go back to what I learned in the infantry, right? Because what we're actually talking about is you're going to be in a dangerous area. You're not going to just be able to go pop up and start a fire and hang out at some camp because most likely the officials or any criminal element out there is going to come find you. So in the infantry, what I was always taught, and believe me, we did this. It was not fun. But, on your walk home, you should find the crappiest place, the lowest place to go hide and sleep. Like ours, it was a swamp or, some other kind of terrain that people are not going to just be going over and walking around. And so I was always told, go to the shittiest area you can find. And I don't mean in the population. I mean in some dense, out in the field, in the woods somewhere, go find the worst spot and then make you a small area there to sleep overnight, because that will be the safest place.
Good advice. And being a SEER school graduate, that's cool stuff. Jeff, where are you going to hide out? You're on mute.
I'm going to find someplace underground, culvert, something like that. Because one, you get a roof over your head. They're generally not as cold as it is outside. And if you're in a cave, culvert, something like that, you've only got one direction really you need to worry about, and that's the outside coming in.
Yep, good advice.
Which are crappy places.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Touche. As per usual, there's always a lack of context in these cards. It's not all written in cement, but I'm not moving during the day. I'm moving at night because most people don't have night vision. So I'm going to make a lot better, distances travel by moving at night, and during the day, I'll find somewhere, to hide out. And who knows, maybe it's a ditch or a culvert like Jeff said, but I can tell you, we have a cabin in North Georgia in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and there's a lot of survival guys up there that will tell you straight up, if you get stuck in the mountains and you have to spend the night in the mountains and you have very little with you and you fall asleep at a low elevation, you're going to get hypothermia. And you have to balance, okay, I want to be somewhere low where I can't be seen, but do I really want to freeze to death? And JJ Morris has some interesting stuff on that search and rescue tech for years, a black ops SAR tech at that. So I'm not disagreeing with Randy per se. I'm saying in this particular geography in North Georgia, low altitude at night, somebody told me what the number is, Randy. And I want to say early spring, late fall, they were talking about potentially 20 degrees difference from being, at somewhere in the valley versus whatever, the difference may be, a couple 100 feet higher, perhaps.
I can vouch for you. All those shitty places, including the ditch culvert, are always colder. They're always colder. It doesn't matter what time of year it is, or because you're right. You're gonna be there mainly during the day. Because I thought it said that in, that's why I didn't mention it. But yes, you move at night. So it's definitely colder at night.
So I wrote it down on my pad because I figured that one of you was going to say move at night, and I wanted to have proof that I'd written it.
No, that's a fact. Daylight is not your friend. It is to keep you warm, but it's not your friend as far as hiding or staying where you're not getting detected. So and I want to thank everybody for the prayers for Janet. Really appreciate that, guys. You guys are awesome.
I haven't even opened this, and I've been telling people, I'd like you to comment on that, by the way, Randy, that the USGI ponchos, Vietnam era before, they're like hen's teeth trying to find them. So when people today say that, their ponchos the equivalent to a USGI, it's the equivalent to what's given out today. It's not the equivalent to what was given out during Vietnam, which was a whole new level. So I got this before we went to Vegas, and I have a bunch of different brands, and I have no idea how good this is, but these guys, this is Orc Industries. I have no relationship with them.
Is that the poncho, or is it the poncho liner?
So I believe this is the entire poncho.
So the way it works, Chris, is you got a poncho and you have a poncho liner. The poncho liner is what you all often hear from grunts like me, certainly the older generations, call the whoopee. And that is the magic. For that, your poncho works pretty good, but when you put that poncho liner up with that poncho, money, you wrap yourself inside that, it's amazing what you can survive in that thing. And then another little tidbit I want to pass on to folks. Okay, that's Gore-Tex, right?
I'm not entirely sure because it's been a while.
I think that's Gore-Tex, which is even better.
I have a bunch of these because every time somebody says it's an authentic USGI, I got to buy it to put my hands on. I'm telling you right now, this is from Orc Industries. This is not even close to a Vietnam era USGI poncho. Not even close.
No, the ponchos are fairly thin. That That looks like to me, because when they went to the ACU stuff, all that was Gore-Tex.
Yeah,
I don't know. I can't. You can look at it. It'll tell you somewhere, I think.
it is Gore-Tex. You can tell by feeling it. But either way.
But even back from the Vietnam era, it's having that poncho liner with it that makes it money.
Well, having a poncho and being stuck somewhere is a great shelter, not just clothing, right? I mean, JJ Morris did a video. I don't know. It was colder than all get out. He lit a candle underneath his poncho and, basically slept overnight in his poncho.
Yeah, it's like 80 degrees in that thing then.
I don't know.
And what people need to realize when you look at your sleeping bags and when it says, this is good up to freezing or 30 degrees, what that means is you will not die at 30 degrees. It doesn't mean you're going to be nice and warm and cuddling in there. You're still going to be freezing your butt off, but you will survive.
Yeah.
All right. Roll out, guys.
Yeah, we're fixing to wrap up. Anyways, thanks, Jeff. And I'll just
all right. See you guys
here with Randy.
See you, Jeff.
So, final mention for our friends at carnival.com. If you sign up for a subscription, you lock in your price for 12 months. That ain't going to happen anywhere else for really high quality meat. 6 ounces in this bag. You reconstitute it 5 to 10 minutes. It's 1.5 pounds of beef. So subscriptions are the way to go, to be quite honest. If you can't swing the subscription, you can use a code EATMEAT, all one word, and save 10% off on this stuff. And message for Greg Wasatch. Damn you, Greg. You've created another whole new.
Oh, goodness. That looks so
I got to have another freaking vice, for crying out loud. I can't stop eating the dang dill pickle jerky. He sends me this stuff. Randy, I don't know if you got any of this.
No, we didn't get any of that. But I will say what he sent was still phenomenal. Those you're right. The beef jerky is better than any jerky I've ever had.
By far. There's nothing that compares to this. I mean, it's
the honey one and the teriyaki literally just melt in your mouth. I've never had beef jerky that would melt in your mouth before.
There you go. There's the teriyaki version of the original.
Oh man, I'm telling you, dude, that stuff melts in your mouth. I kid you not. It was the most tenderest one of all of them.
Randy, have a look at the creases. They are full. They're full of juice. This stuff is.
Oh yeah, it's money. There's no doubt about that.
Damn you, Greg Wasatch. Give me another damn vice, for crying out loud. I told him, I said, hey, when I got to Vegas, I weighed 200 pounds. And when I left, I told him, I said, I weighed 225 because I ate all that damn jerky that you brought for me. I'm joking, of course. I was 225 both times. But anyway,
yeah.
Regardless, these guys, they don't pay us affiliate money. I don't particularly like affiliate money. I'd rather not have a dog in the hunt. And in this particular case, they're very generous. They give us a stipend to defray costs. I'm not going to tell you how much I spent on building our Element server and deploying it so that we have an ultra secure private community for our guardians. You can go to survivaldispatch.news and sign up, by the way, for $7.99 a month or $79.99. We've got 18 channels now on our Element server. Randy's in there. It's a great way to converse with everybody. Like-minded community, no prying eyes. And when the power swings and we get deplatformed again, because I got deplatformed during Charlie 19, we've got a home, and you guys have a home as well. Other than that, Randy, I think we beat everything to death tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time as usual, 7 p.m. Eastern. Next episode in our Long War series. And it's an interesting one, Randy, that you'll like. It's the collapse of NATO and alliances.
Oh, boy.
And the theme is fractured global defense. And the summary is traditional alliances crumble, leaving America increasingly isolated. You won't want to miss it. So,
last thing, what is the cap you have on? So people already asked, what is that? Coinbase, I think, is what they asked, or something like that.
No, C for Chris. No, this is our good friend. This is our good friend Jeff Nicholas's company, Compliant Technologies. The guy.
There we go.
Loves. Yeah, but when he gave it to me, I said, "That's awesome! You made a hat just for me with a C on it." Yeah. And Randy and his team would be like the biggest fans of Jeff, because Jeff was a Night Stalker 160. So the pilots who fly with night vision choppers and take guys like Randy in and out of wherever the mission is. A true American hero, by the way. He was in Mogadishu, during Black Hawk Down. He was flying a Black Hawk at the time. He owns Compliant Technologies. He's one of just the most incredible human beings. I love Jeff Nicholas, an amazing American, and just an amazing friend.
Yeah, I'll tell you, all those 160th pilots, both the Black Hawk and certainly the Little Birds. People don't realize, like I was telling you in one episode previously, a couple weeks ago, when you look across the Baghdad, right, of all the rooftops, it's staggering. And these guys, night after night, can fly you to the exact right building and back without making a mistake. And that's, saying that over this thing, believe me, probably some people say, well, how hard can that be? Well, trust me, it's not as easy as you think. It's also in the dark with thousands of other rooftops that look exactly like it. So it is fucking incredible.
So these guys, as far as pilots are concerned, chopper pilots, they're the best of the best.
That's right.
They're the best in the entire freaking world. These are the same guys who took the Chinooks into Venezuela and dropped Delta Team and picked them back up again. These guys,
for sure. Absolutely. And that's if they were, I don't know, they probably used several aircraft, but it guaranteed it was 160th. And what special operations does, and that includes 160th, and it includes SOCOM, right? M4s, special operations doesn't have to pay for M4s because it's a standard issue. So the Army has to give them whatever SOCOM needs. And then, so they had to spend the money on it. So now what SOCOM does, takes the money for that rifle and buys all the kit that goes on it. Same thing with all of those birds. And trust me, you look up in the middle of the night and see the silhouette, you know if it's a 160th bird or not, because it's the same concept. SOCOM doesn't pay for the Black Hawk. They didn't pay for the Little Bird. Okay. They use the same amount of money that bird would cost to outfit it with all the special operations equipment that's on those things. Right. And there is a huge difference.
That's freaking awesome. Just absolutely awesome. I love the video, Randy, that we played, a few weeks ago of the 160 Night Stalkers going into Venezuela at night.
Oh yeah, buddy.
Just freaking badass.
I can't tell you what that feels like, but somebody to ask me, man, what do you think about that last time? I was like, dude, I would have given one of the family jewels just to be on that mission, just to have my rifle and be on one of those birds and roll in and out of there, man.
Doherty nailed it. Killing machine.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Best of the freaking best. So anyway, I want to thank all of our Guardian members. We couldn't do this without y'all. I want to thank our sponsors. Really, really appreciate Carnivalt, Wasatch Wagyu, CCW Safe, and Atomic. As you can see that I had running across the bottom. Link for that is down below, by the way. But other than that, between now and tomorrow night, if you could please like, share, comment, subscribe, we would appreciate it. God bless our law enforcement. God bless our military. God bless America. Enjoy the closing video. It's a brand new one.
We